Welcome into a fresh week here on Daily Faceoff Live. As always, streaming live on the DFO YouTube. And as always, a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Tyler Yaremchuk and Steve Peters with you. Petey filling in. Hutz is flying home to Thunder Bay after a great weekend out in the Rockies. Petey, how was your weekend?
It's good. Things are good. I will say this time we're getting closer to the Olympic, and you can actually see the playoffs in the distance. So it's getting really exciting right now.
Yeah, for a lot of teams, they're now in their final 30 games of the season. So not exactly a perfectly even number, but roughly a third of the year remaining. And of course, the Olympic break coming up in just over 10 days here, which should be great. Let's kick things off, though, with our Man of the Weekend awards, as we always do here on the show. And I will start. We were out in Jasper on the weekend playing in the annual Jasper Pond Hockey tournament. It was absolutely beautiful. And sort of the end of the event is our Oilers Nation watch party. Edmonton, Washington, Saturday night, hockey night in Canada, and that watch party, the vibes of that party were saved by one Evan Bouchard. It is only the third time in the last decade that a defenseman has had a 6-point performance. Evan Bouchard gets his first career hat trick thanks to this goal, and the Edmonton Oilers get a win. And this has sparked a whole bunch of conversations around the NHL. Listen, a defenseman who's capable of doing things like Bouchard did on Saturday night. Everyone's asking, Petey, how the hell is Hockey Canada not taking this guy to the Olympics? And I mean, a little too late for that conversation, I suppose, unless there's an injury. But Bouchard's offensive performance caught the league over the weekend.
One of the things, and we've talked about Bouchard for years now, and it's a risk-reward player. We know what he is, and we know what he brings offensively to this Edmonton Oilers team. And when you talk about what he could have done for Team Canada, you look through the roster, and when you have a short tournament like this, you want a player that brings something different that you have on that roster. I think Evan Bouchard does that. Now, is he a defensive liability? Potentially so in some games, but he's a guy that can bring offense like only Cale Makar really, when you look at that roster. Bouchard has something that other guys don't have other than Makar. And he's a guy now that you don't have Manila. You can't go to him when you need a goal late in a game. I'm kind of surprised because he does have that different skill set. Now, you don't put him out. You need to protect the lead. Obviously, he might not be the guy. But when you're chasing a game, I'd like to be able to look down the bench and see number two. So, yeah, I do think that it's one of those things when you're putting a team together, you got to have guys with different skill sets.
Yeah, and for me, like a lot of the focus with Bouchard, and part of it is because, you play in a big market, so the clips of the goals against always seem to be going viral and whatnot. I think too many people just focus on what he doesn't do instead of focusing on just how elite he is at what he does do well. Like, to be a defenseman who's over a point per game is very rare in today's NHL. And I guess this is similar to, like the Lane Hudson versus Jackson Lacombe conversation we were having a week ago, where like, there is a scenario in these Olympics where you are going to be going up. Keep in mind, you go up against the best goalies in the world. It's not just the best on best skaters. Like, the odds of you needing a goal late in the game are very high. And I just look for Team USA with Hudson, for Team Canada with Bouchard. Yes, you can have your Sanheims and Parekos and Devon Taves and all of those pieces. But I mean, like, Drew Doughty made it over Bouch. I know they like the leadership and all of that stuff, but like, one guy's coming off a 6-point performance. The other guy doesn't have a point in 12 games. Like, sometimes I just think that there's people and how they view a defenseman. A lot of times it's like, well, is he rugged? Can he cross-check someone? Is he big? Like, all of those things. Okay, but getting the puck out of your own zone is also another part of this, PD. The best offense or the best defense is a good offense. Like, Evan Bouchard, to his credit, he's very, very good at getting the puck out of his zone. I think, again, there's a lot of things with the modern defenseman that I think a lot of people just kind of overlook.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems with the way we address Evan Bouchard is we're so critical on the defensive side, and if the puck bounces over the stick, well, it's his fault. And
Yeah.
if he falls down, well, it's his fault. Like, we're so critical, and it's we're all eyes are on him defensively that I think honestly we're too harsh. And I think that's in the media. I think that's the fan base. I think you look at every little critical mistake and go, Bouchard's doing it to us. And look around the league. Look at the top defensemen in the league that have that offensive upside. This is not uncommon that they're going to get caught trapped on a 4-man rush, and you're going to get an odd man rush going the other way. Happens. And their ability to defend in front of the net, it's not as high as other defending defensemen. And I think that critical eye has really put a negative taste in people's mouths on Evan Bouchard, and maybe part of the reason that he's not wearing the Team Canada jersey coming up here in a few weeks.
All right, your man of the weekend. We are heading out to Colorado. Who's caught your eye?
Yeah, I really like Nikita Kucherov with 5 points in 2 games, but I had to go back to the Minnesota native all the way from Warrow, the 34-year-old Brock Nelson. First hat trick in 4 seasons, his 5th of his career against the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it's all because he plays the right way. He's got 45 points in 55 games this year, points in 12 of his last 14. He's got 21 points in those 14 games. And in that game against Toronto, he plays over 20 minutes. He's playing power play. He's playing on the penalty kill. He's playing 5-on-5. He had 7 shot attempts, tied him with McKinnon as the forward group, and he's only trailed McCarr for shot attempts. He is one of the key reasons that this Colorado team is off to the start they have. One, it's his leadership. He's a smart player, plays 200 feet. And you know what? Minnesota kid, I can't help but root for.
Yeah, he's been a really, really good story this year. Again, those numbers are solid. The Avs made the big splash at last year's deadline, and they gave up a lot for him, right? Cal Ritchie, the first-round pick, and it didn't really work that last year, but I'll maybe give credit to that front office PD for, and I was someone who sat there and said, like, all right, it didn't work, maybe wasn't the fit you want. They obviously bowed out of the playoffs earlier than they wanted to. I kind of said, like, do you really want to double down on this? Just because you gave up a lot to acquire him doesn't mean you need to be desperate to give him. You know, they eventually gave him $7.5 million, but I kind of thought, don't be desperate to give him big money just because you don't want the trade to look bad. I'll applaud the front office there in hindsight for, you know, kind of just continuing to believe in him and not panicking because maybe he didn't fit in as quickly as they would have liked last season.
Yeah, and I think we talk about center depth, and I think it's incredibly important as you approach the playoffs. We've talked about that with Edmonton, with the 1-2 punch with Draisaitl and McDavid when they're both playing up the middle of the ice. And I think Brock Nelson gives them a level of security in Colorado up the middle, and I think that's what makes them so dangerous. You look how well they're playing right now with the number of players they have injured, and they're still continuing to play like this. Florida wins a Stanley Cup on the back of an experienced Brad Marchand last year. Brock Nelson could play a very critical role in this playoffs this season. You know that the target defensively will be on McKinnon and that top line. So some may have to provide that scoring, and it could be Brock Nelson. I do fight over time, that experienced player in the locker room, up the middle of the ice that can play both sides of the puck and can go on the ice when you're trailing or leading a game. I think it's going to be incredibly critical, and I do expect him to be one of the key players in the playoffs for the Colorado.
And a key player probably for Team USA as well at the Olympics. So a couple of players with a different sort of Olympic tie-ins there. Let's go from a couple of players who had great weekends to a team who's coming off a great weekend. And that team is the Pittsburgh Penguins. They have won 4 games in a row now, finishing up their weekend with another big victory. And listen, one of the bigger surprises, I think, in the entire NHL is the fact that we are sitting here game 51 for the Penguins, and they are second in the Metropolitan Division. And not only that, I think they can look around their division and go, oh boy, are we getting the Islanders potentially in round 1, the Flyers potentially in round 1? Like, there's a reason this Penguins team and this front office to sit there and go, hold up, we might have a path to not just getting in, but a path to winning a round in the playoffs. And from there, who knows? But Petey, this Penguins team is starting to show me that they are not just oh, what a great start, a feel-good story. The old guys have found the fountain of youth, all that stuff. Like, they've done what they've done. And again, we are at the 50-game mark of the season. I think it's time that we start putting a bit of respect on this Pittsburgh team.
I do too. And coming into the season, I said with the new coach, Dan Muse, who is not as experienced as a Mike Sullivan, doesn't have the pedigree. And you go, okay, they're understanding where they are in the standings. They're getting older. They're going to go through some changes. They're not looking at the playoffs. But you look where they're at right now. They're 15 points ahead of where they were a year ago after 51 games. Their goal differential last year through 51, minus 39. This year, plus 17. And a lot of that, you look at the defensive structure. Now they're bringing 3 guys back through the neutral zone, so you're not giving up as many odd man rushes, which is a problem with Carlson and Letang. We have to be honest. And I think that ability to bring them back and help defend, I think that's really helped them. This team is playing consistently through their lineup. And we have to give Sidney Crosby credit because he does drive this bus, always has driven this bus, and he plays the right way every single single time for the boards, but it's all of those other guys. It's all of those other guys that are contributing offensively. We talked about it last year with Protas and McMichael. This year it's Brazo and Mantha for Pittsburgh that are doing it. And they're in career highs in points and goals and all of those things. And their depth through the lineup with pace. This is a fun team to watch. And you have to go to their goaltender.
Yeah, Stuart Skinner, ever since he's come over from the Edmonton Oilers. He started a little rough, like his first 3 or 4 games were really, really tough on the numbers. But since then, absolutely dynamite for Stuart Skinner. A 906 now with the Penguins, 7 wins in 11 appearances as well. I mean, I said it at the time of the trade, like Stuart Skinner himself kind of said it, like he needed a fresh start. The environment here in Edmonton, it was never going to work here. They needed to split up for each other's sake. And listen, Edmonton's not complaining about the goaltending they're getting recently, but these numbers, man, like Stuart Skinner may have just saved his NHL career with his play over the last month.
Yeah, and you talked about where he is since he's been there with a 906 and a 231, but go and wipe out the first 3 when the
Yep.
trade was a shock and you're traveling and trying to get settled. Then you had the Christmas break. Since the Christmas break, Skinner's 7-1, the 934 save percentage and a goal against of 163. And go to last night. Go to last night against the Vancouver Canucks when the goalie was pulled for the Vancouver Canucks, comes up with game-saving saves. And I'm not saying he wasn't good in Edmonton at stretches, but those are saves sometimes in Edmonton. One of those might go in. And right now he's got a confidence levels there. The pressure on the fan base is not at him. He's not getting the negative publicity that he got in Edmonton, kind of like we're talking about with Bouchard. Things are positive for Skinner. And I think Pittsburgh has really taken a step forward since he's been added to their lineup. And let's face it, so the defenseman help that they've got too from Kulak, that's also been a benefit for this Pittsburgh Penguins team. This trade has really benefited the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, it's been great. And like the Kulak thing, when they got him, it was like, okay, maybe they'll just end up flipping him at the deadline and turning him into more picks. But again, with this Pittsburgh team being where they're at, and maybe this is a conversation for our friend Jeff Merrick tomorrow, with Pittsburgh being where they're at, I'm very curious to see if Kyle Dubas gets a little bit of an itchy trigger finger with the Pens ahead of the deadline. Let's keep things cruising along before we get to Brock Seguin. PD, we're busting out the concernometer because while things are going so well in places like Pittsburgh, and hey, even look, the Anaheim Ducks out west have won 7 in a row and gotten their season right back on track, there are a couple of teams that have just failed to grab hold of really any sort of momentum this year. So we'll start with the concernometer in the Eastern Conference with the Maple Leafs and the Capitals, both coming off tough losses over the weekend. They are both 5 points out of a playoff spot. Which fan base should have a higher concern level that their season is slipping away between the Caps and Leafs, Speedy?
And surprising, I'm going to say this, it's the Washington Capitals. And I think you have to go to a couple metrics for this. You go a season ago, this team had 77 points at this point in the season. They were first in the Metro. They're 20 points behind us. And that is a huge problem for this team. A team that I think overshot last season. I think we talked about Protas and McMichael having a better season than expected. You talked about the Ovechkin chase, and I think that brought some offensive upside. Everybody was trying to get Ovi those goals. This team is 10th in goals against per game in the entire league, and they're still losing games. I am very concerned. I don't know if 1 or 2 players makes the change enough for the Washington Capitals. The only injury they really have is Pierre-Luc Dubois, so they're going to have to shuffle up this roster. Toronto, they're not that far off pace where they were a year ago. They're only 7 points off from where they were a season ago. But you look at some of their injuries, especially Tanev and Nylander, and the goaltender mess they've gone through almost the entire season. I think Toronto is going to get better. I think Toronto still has the ability to raise the bar. And I do think Toronto finds a way to slide in when they need those points the most. So I am concerned for the Washington Capitals.
Yeah, and again, part of it too, like the division that they're in right now, 5 of the playoff spots are occupied by teams in the Atlantic. So when you look at Toronto trying to catch, like they just need one of Boston, Montreal, Buffalo to kind of slip up and they can get in. When you look at Washington, like Carolina's locked in. I mean, Washington might be, because of how strong the Atlantic is compared to the Metro. Washington might only be able to catch one of New York or Pittsburgh. Like the options for teams to slip out and them to gain ground, it's a lot tougher of a path for the Capitals. So it was one of my bold predictions this year, one of the few I look good on, but I kind of had the Caps circled as like, man, I don't know if things could go as well as they did a year ago. And so far, again, could Logan Thompson go on a scorcher and could they rattle off 8 straight? Sure, but you could kind of say that about every team. I agree with you is what I'm trying to say, that the Caps should be a little bit concerned. Speaking of goaltending, PD, I want to throw you another one. The Montreal Canadiens, listen, they're pretty firmly in the playoff mix right now. 63 points in 52 games. They aren't going to have to do the thing they did a year ago, which is have a miraculous second half of the year to get into the playoffs. But they've been winning these games in spite of their goaltending. And Sam Montembeault is going through another tough stretch right now with 12 goals against in his last three starts. Scale of 1 to 10, how concerned should the Canadiens be with their goaltending?
It's high. It's got to be at least an 8. And
Yeah.
Sam Montembeault last season, the tear that he went on last year, this year he's getting up 3 or more in 5 of 6, 7 of 9. He's only had above a 900 save percentage in 7 of 22 games. And ironically enough, Montreal's giving up fewer shots, almost 3 shots per game fewer than they did a season ago. You expect that number to get better. But this team is 24th in goals against average. They've got a 3-headed monster, which is impossible to have success because you can't get everybody the ice time they need. Dobish started off hot. He's fallen off. And the problem with Montembeault, too, is when you go back and look at the goals, they're leaking through them. And when you get a goaltender that's giving up 1 goal a game, just one that he's got to have, the ones that are going through him, under his arm, below his legs, like those are the ones that really hurt you. And they hurt the morale on the bench. And you need a goaltender like Montembeault to have a season like last year that propelled this team into the playoffs. And there is a concern because you need to have, to win the Stanley Cup, you need to have one goalie red hot, and you probably need the second guy to be pretty darn good right now because most teams are going to get 1 and 2 guys over that long stretch of a long playoff season. And right now, Montreal doesn't have anybody going. And that is a huge concern. You can't outscore your problems forever in the playoffs.
Yeah, a lot of talk this morning that maybe they would consider bringing back 21-year-old Jacob Fowler, who out of those 3, Fowler, Dobish, and Montembeault, Fowler has the best numbers of them. He's 21 years old, but again, if you're Montreal, you have to be out of patience with the Montembeault and Dobish duo. I think it's time that they just call up Jacob Fowler and tell him like, hey, this is your crease. I know it's a lot of pressure on a 21-year-old, but again, he so far so good. His numbers have been excellent when they've given him a few looks. Let's get out to our big segment for the day. It's Brock's Seguin, and it's brought to you by Uber Eats. Uber Eats is enabling fans to maximize their fandom all season long with exclusive game day deals on the app. From game day eats to paper plates and napkins, if you're hosting, whether it's before, during, or after the big game, Uber Eats is assisting every fan's hockey experience all season long. A guy, a stat, a trend. Brock Seguin from the Daily Faceoff Fantasy Podcast. You can find him on the DFO Fantasy and Betting YouTube channel. We'll throw a link in our YouTube here so people can head over and subscribe. But Brock, appreciate you popping on as always. Let's kick things off. Who is the guy that fantasy owners should be watching this week?
Well, going back to what you guys were just talking about, I hope the Canadians call up Jacob Fowler because a couple weeks ago I said, man, he could be a real league-winning type fantasy pickup, and then they sent him down like 2 weeks later. So I'm hoping that he comes back up. But my guy this week is Lawson Crouse of the Utah Mammoth. He's currently 25% rostered in Yahoo leagues, and most of that is in banger formats, leagues that count hits or block shots, and he's always been a good asset in those leagues. He averages like 2.5 hits per game basically for his career. But now that he's skating with Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz, his offense has kind of taken another step. It's taken him to another level. He has 11 points, including 4 goals in his last 11 games. But it's more than just Crouse. That line is just absolutely dominating the opposition right now. Right now, they're averaging 3.8 expected goals for per 60. They're controlling 63.9% of the expected goals for while they're on the ice, and they've outscored their opponents 12-2. So, Crouse has been a huge addition to that line. That line, that whole lineup is so deep right now. Those 3 lines just absolutely rolling. But I found this stat pretty interesting. So far this season, there are only 4 players in the league with double-digit goals, 25-plus points, and 130-plus hits. And Crouse is one of them, and 44% of his season total points has come since Christmas. So he's been red hot as of late. And like I said, he's always been more of a banger format type of guy, but he's really starting to solidify himself as somebody that you can pick up in fantasy in any format. He's just been that good lately.
Hey, Brock, 2 things. First, nice to meet you. And sweatshirt is sick. Go to nationgear.ca and pick up that sweatshirt because I'm totally jealous. And we have a ton of nerds here, Brock, and I am one of them. Stat this week.
Yeah, so I'll get to the actual stat here in a minute, but it regards Mason Marchment, and he's coming off a 4-point outing, including a hat trick against Tampa Bay on Saturday, and he now has 11 points, including 8 goals in 9 games since being traded to Columbus. But it's not just surface level production for him. Since joining the Blue Jackets, here's the stat: Marchment leads the NHL in individual expected goals for per game, according to Sports Logic. It's nearly double the next closest Columbus player over that span, which is Kirill Marchenko, who everybody would look at as the goal scorer on that team at 0.47 individual expected goals for per game. He also has the highest on ice expected goals for per game of any Blue Jackets forward, and he's in the top 60 of the league during that stretch. So if you're not a nerd like the rest of us, simply put, when Marchment is on the ice, Columbus is generating an enormous amount of quality chances, and the majority of them right now are coming off his stick. So since joining the Blue Jackets, he has shot 42%. Is that going to continue? Absolutely not. But the regression may not be quite as harsh or as immediate as you would think when you see a 42% shooting percentage, given the volume and the quality of looks that Marchment is getting right now. So, I think we might look back at that being one of the more low-key moves that was made this year that has made a humongous impact. That lineup is super deep right now, and Marchment has just been absolutely excellent. And I don't know if you guys saw the quote, but Marchenko apparently approached Marchment when he found out they were going to be on a line together, and was just like, let's have some fun. And they've just been dominating.
And for Columbus, 6-4 in their last 10, 7 points out of a playoff spot. I think we'll get to a point in the next, month here where the conversation turns to, could they maybe flip Marchment for more than they paid to acquire him? Because if he keeps up these numbers, he's a pending UFA. He's the kind of guy that I think a lot of contenders would be like, oh my God, salivating at the idea of him being in their middle 9 for a playoff run, or middle 6, I should say. Sorry. Let's wrap up here with your trend. And Petey was talking about how teams need 2 goalies if they want to have success. That is where you're going with your trend, Brock.
Yeah, just some kind of backups that you wouldn't really focus on very often, especially in fantasy hockey, seem to just be flourishing here in January, and I just wanted to shed some light on them. And specifically, the one I wanted to talk about was Devin Cooley. I just think that there hasn't been much coverage on him at all. It just feels like one of the more underappreciated, really, really good stories of the 25-26 NHL season. I mean, he's a 28-year-old journeyman, played in the ECHL, the AHL. He's been all over the map, and he currently leads the NHL in quality start percentage, 85.7 quality start percentage. I mean, that just means he's basically never having a bad game, right? He's 2-1-1 with a 150 goals against average and a 950 save percentage in January. The Flames, to me, if they were serious, they would be giving him more starts. He's just outplayed Dustin Wolf time and time again, and it's kind of like a 70-30 split in favor of Wolf, and Cooley's finally starting to eat into that a little bit more, and he deserves a lot of run, man. He's just been spectacular. So, from a fantasy perspective, the Flames are certainly not a great hockey team, but he's been a real split stabilizer. Every time he gets the start, he goes in and he performs well. Jonas Korpisalo for the Bruins has struggled for a while. He struggled most of this season, but he's been absolutely excellent for them in January. 4-0 with a 142 goals against average and a 948 save percentage. Obviously, Jeremy Swayman headed off to the Olympics. Who knows how much he'll play, but they might need Korpisalo a little bit more down the stretch here to spell Swayman. Obviously the schedule is condensed this year, so you do need 2 goalies, and Korpisalo has really given the Bruins, who have been a surprise team in general, a really strong secondary option. And then I think the most important one of all has been Daniil Tarasov, who he's enjoying the best season of his entire career. In January, he's been absolutely exceptional. He's 4-0 as well. He's got a 122 goals against average and a 946 save percentage. And regular season Bobrovsky has been very much that this year. He has not performed very well, and this is a Panthers team that got started behind the 8 ball with all of these injuries, and they're really, really trying to make up ground here. And if Bob's going to struggle, they've already shown a willingness to go to Tarasov pretty frequently here in January, and I think they might have to a little bit more moving forward.
Yeah, of course, Tarasov with the Panthers. They're 3 points back of the Bruins. You just talked about those two teams, 4-0 with their backups. If either one of them was 2-2 with their backups and not getting these games, that gap isn't 3 points. The margins are so thin right now. Brock, before we let you go, I'm going to give you a chance to make your Mort cider.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to come on here and talk about Moritz Seider, obviously, without being biased as a Red Wings fan. But like, I just feel like it's more of a betting thing right now. Like, you can bet him at plus 75 to 1, right? Where Werenski's plus 275, Makar's minus 285. And I think there's a legitimate case to be made here. Like with Moritz Seider on the ice, Detroit has a 56% expected goals for share. Without him, that drops 10% to 46%. It's a drastic difference. If you want to look at actual goals, their goal for share with him on the ice is 58%. That drops to 42% without him on the ice. It's night and day when he's not on the ice. In Sports Logic, they track defensive plays, which are pass blocks, shot blocks, stick checks, body checks that result in a change of possession. Seider's 6th in the NHL. So if we want to focus on the defensive side of the game, he's 6th in the NHL. Makar's 39th, Werenski's 50th. Now, you could argue that maybe it's because those teams have the puck a little bit more than the Red Wings do, and they've got more opportunities. But at the end of the day, we already went through the on-ice numbers. And when you look at Colorado, they're marginally better in 5v5 expected goals for with Makar on the ice, which is kind of surprising. And they're worse defensively with him on the ice. There's a noticeable difference for the Blue Jackets offensively when Werenski is on the ice, but the defensive metrics are similar. For Seider, it's just night and day different. They're way better when he's on the ice. So I will leave you with this because I think at the end of the day, voters are always going to be looking at the points, but in evolving hockey's GAR model, which is goals above replacement, Seider's 2nd in the NHL behind only Connor McDavid. That's pretty good company, right? 3rd in their WAR model, which is wins above replacement, behind only Connor McDavid, and I believe 2nd is Mark Stone. Respectively, you've got Makar in 48th and 46th, and Werenski's 11th in both of those. So yeah, I'm focusing here, on those two because they're the two favorites, right? Minus 285 for Makar, plus 275 for Werenski. 75 to 1 for Seider right now. Like, that is some of the craziest value out there. I think there's a legitimate case to be made. And I think the one thing, like, people are always going to say they're going to focus on the points. It's going to be Makar. There is also some voter fatigue that creeps in on some of these awards as well. And maybe giving a guy like Seider, the Red Wings have become such a great story this year. I think it's possible. He's been so good. So that's my case. I'm betting him at 75 to 1 for sure. And hopefully in a few months' time, I can cash that in.
All right, Brock, appreciate your time. Love that analysis on the Seider thing because it ties into something we talked about last week. So appreciate that as well. I will chat with you again in a couple weeks.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Nice to meet you.
I mean, the beauty of working with quality broadcasters. My camera freezes. Brock just takes off and goes. Petey, you're dropping in an impromptu Nation Gear plug. Look at that.
Yeah, and I tell you what he had to say about defensemen, I'm going to say this, Ty, it's bothered me for years. The inability to make this award, make two. Just let's do it. Let's get it done with. Yeah. Give the guy that puts up the most points, give him an award, and let's make a defending defenseman award, because to have guys like Jacob Slavin and Gustav Forsling not get any recognition, come on. Like, it is nice to hear about Brock talking about the guy that can do it both ways. Yeah, if we're gonna keep one award, let's do it that way. Great job.
Yeah, that was excellent stuff from Brock, and I agree with you on that point. Like, why do we have a best defensive forward award but not a defensive defender? Like, it just doesn't make a ton of sense. All right, another award, and this ties into our Ask DFO question, but picking up on what you talked about with the way the Penguins have changed their style of play, I'm looking right now, Dan Muse is 6th on the list for Coach of the Year odds. Do you think he deserves a bit more respect? Like, you obviously looked into it. How much are his fingerprints all over this Penguins team?
It's big, and there's two reasons. One is the system play, and it is considerably different on their ability to defend, especially through the neutral zone, and their ability to protect against the rush. That does make a difference. And I really like Mike Sullivan. He's a great coach. He's won Stanley Cups. But inside the locker room, you hear the same voice year after year after year. You know when you're going to get yelled at. You know what buttons are going to get pushed. And it's good to get a new voice. It's good to get something different in there. And you can see it in the performance of their best players. And you can see the resurgence of Crosby, Malkin, and the way this team is performing under Muse. Again, I'll say I'm surprised. I did not anticipate the Pittsburgh Penguins jumping off like this under Dan Muse right now. He has to get a lot of credit for what's going on in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, again, 16 to 1. I don't mind those odds. Speaking of the odds, let's go to our daily bets for Bet365. Download the app today. Use the promo code NATION, whatever the moment. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Pat, you and I had a great weekend in Jasper. We did not have a great weekend on the betting front, so a couple of X's there for us. Anyway, but you didn't even make one because we had the issues on Friday. So, I mean, you didn't miss out on much, I guess.
Yeah, I got lucky. Yeah, there was a lot going on. I'm just happy that we got some good hockey in both on the in the NHL and in Jasper. So now we can just move on.
Yeah. All right, let's go to our picks for tonight, Pat. I'll kick things off. So I was originally going to have a little two-leg parlay here with the Islanders to beat the Flyers, which I still love. Plus 100 will be my odds. But I was going to take the Kings to beat Philly. The Kings to beat Columbus. We have those flip-flop. But the game's actually been canceled tonight because of the severe storms. The NHL has had to postpone tonight's LA versus Columbus game. So I am simply just taking Islanders plus 100 on the money line over the Flyers. I'm fading Sam Ersson, who is not a good goalie and playing tonight for Philly. Pat, what do you got tonight?
Well, I realize my clutch word for this is keep it simple, but this is exactly what I'm going to do because a lot of the time I just follow the hot hand, and right now it's Evan Bouchard, 2+ points tonight against Anaheim, plus 155. I know it's not every night he gets 2 points, but coming off a 6-point game, a hat trick, he's being raved upon in the media right now. His confidence is sky high. Divisional game, these are the type of guys that step up in those moments. So at plus 155, 2+ points, sitting good to me.
Yeah, like I don't like Edmonton in that game simply because the odds are absolutely insane going up against a Ducks team that has won 7 in a row. But Anaheim is expected to go with Ville Husso this game, and he is definitely the worst of their two goalies with Lucas Dostal. So I don't mind betting on the Oilers offense, at least to give them a little bit of something. Wrapping up the show with a little bit of garbage time. And I wanted to save it for garbage time because I don't think it's really worth all that much of a conversation. But William Nylander up in the press box, catching the fact that he's on TV and flipping the bird. Listen, I called out Nylander a couple of weeks ago when he was wearing a tank top in the press box, and I was like, hey, maybe there is some line of like what professionalism is. And I don't think this is a massive deal, but Petey, there's also a part of me that's like, you know what? If there were some good veterans in that room, like I don't think they would stand for a guy like William Nylander doing stuff like this. So again, he apologized. It really is whatever, but I do think it's just a little bit of a sign of a glimpse into the mentality of those Leafs stars in that Leafs locker room.
Yeah, again, it's not that big a deal. I'm not going to go, hey, there should be a fine. It's a guy. Hey, look, I'm on TV. If you were 10 years old, you'd go, yeah, I understand. If this is a professional athlete, be better. Like it's not big deal. Don't overthink this. Just be better and understand you're in the biggest hockey market in North America, and you've got all eyes on you. Just be better.
Yeah, and again, like your season's not going well. Like if you were on the Colorado Avalanche and you're doing this, I think everyone would laugh and be like, oh my God, they're just screwing around having a good time. But because it's Toronto, because their season's gone the way it's had, because there's sort of that little bit of tension, especially with the Marner return game, this becomes a story. And again, the Leafs, just get out of your own way. Like don't make stuff like this a negative story. Anyways, that's a wrap on today's edition of the show. Petey was great. Brock Seguin was great behind the scenes. Pat Puff did an excellent job. Everybody in the YouTube, appreciate you popping in for the day. Hit the subscribe button because we are here Monday through Friday. And tomorrow, Carter Hutton is back in the big chair. Enjoy your Monday. Enjoy the hockey tonight, everybody. And we'll see you right back here tomorrow at noon Eastern. Hey, hockey fans, if you enjoyed that video, then make sure you hit the subscribe button right here on the Daily Faceoff YouTube. We have you covered for everything you need. Exclusive interviews on The Sheet with Jeff Merrick, all the latest hockey news on Daily Faceoff Live, and you can always get your morning started with Johnny Lazarus and Colby Cohn on Morning Cup of Hockey. Don't miss a minute. Hit that subscribe button.